Okay, as I said, as soon as I got the filter media itself out, I would take another video. This is the first one, and it is fairly well soaked. I wouldn't say it's not compromised, but it is nasty. Uh, this particular unit had two filters, and the way it looks like one is a little denser than the other. This was in the upper end, that one was in the lower end. Of course, if y'all are wondering, it's got a couple of strings on there. Somebody thought I had enough. They laid a couple of strings around it and tied them so that when you got the lower filter out, you could then reach in and grab the strings and pull the upper one without destroying it. Thank you, Zetter, whoever in the Czech Republic that was smart enough to do that. I appreciate that greatly. Here is the canisters. Pardon the mess on the workbench. I've been working on this tractor doing maintenance now for 2.5 weeks, doing different things. I inherited this puppy. It's kind of a funny thing of how we got this old girl. I graduated in '93, went off to college, had been begging for a front end loader and a cab tractor since I had started working for my grandfather and my father when I was 8. And no, we don't need one. No, we don't need one. And sure, lo and behold, they don't even make it 4 months with me going off to school. I come back home for Christmas break, and a much nicer version of this same tractor was sitting at my grandparents'. I said, "What's the deal, Paul? Y'all couldn't make it one winter without me here, feeding on the old tractors?" He grinned and looked at me, and he said, "Yeah." Said, "Your dad will never admit it, but we didn't realize how much you did around here until you were gone. And I'm too old, and your dad doesn't like the cold any more than you do. So we've had this thing in our family since '93, the winter of '93, I should say, fall of '93, December-ish. And it has been a good tractor. My grandfather tried to tear it up. He was a Ford man. I grew up with a Super Major and a 5,000 row crop, which for those of you who know what those were, they were two really stout tractors. And we ran anywhere between 25 to as many as 300 head of cows, and baled all of our own hay and did all of our own winter planting and everything else with just those two tractors. And this one replaced the 5,000 row crop and did quite well until my grandfather realized that the front end loader looks when you put a big push blade for moving around loose dirt and rocks, looks a lot like a bulldozer. And he decided that, well, if it looks like a bulldozer, he can use it like a bulldozer. And how that tractor held up, I do not know, but it did. Zetter makes a good product. I definitely can attest to that now, because it should be in pieces. And honestly, what I've done to it in the last few weeks since I got it down here to where I actually live now has been nothing but just maintenance. It was stuff that Granddad didn't do, like the brakes went out and needed to be. You had to pull the trunks in order to replace the slave cylinders on them and things like that, of that nature. I've still got to figure out how I'm going to get the air conditioner back to working, as this was before they started incorporating their own air conditioning systems into their cabs. It's got an aftermarket that was made in Roanoke, Texas that no longer exists. The company doesn't. And I've had fun finding compressors, and now it's down to finding a new condenser unit and fans and where to mount it, because the old system mounted, you can see the lines run up the back of the cab. It mounted right off the back of the cab. That wasn't worth a darn when you were baling hay. I actually had engineered a switch inside because the electric fans would suck everything up from the bottom up the back glass and right into the condenser. And for a while I ran it with a switch inside that would allow me to flip the rotation of the fans. They'd pull and then they'd push. And it worked for a while, not as well as it needed to, but it would keep you cool enough you could stand to be in there in Texas and bail without taking the doors off. But the last few years, it quit. The whole system needed to be redone and didn't have the money. Poor rancher, that type of deal. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know you do with what you got. I just pull the doors off in the summer and shred and go and do what needs to be done. At any rate, I'm going to get these two media deals cleaned up and get the rest of this mess cleaned up. And when I go to do the final assembly, I'll do another little short clip on reassembly.